Welcome to LFC Transfer Hub. Alexander Isak transfer takes ugly turn as Liverpool wait on new Newcastle United move. Those of a Liverpool and Newcastle United persuasion have spent much of the last month becoming increasingly entrenched in their views over the prospect of Alexander Isak moving to Anfield. But there's one aspect where they will surely now be in agreement. The situation in the northeast with the Sweden international is now looking ugly. Very, very ugly indeed. Tuesday morning's latest missive in the ongoing efforts of Isak to prize himself away from the League Cup winners claims the player has no intention of playing for Newcastle ever again, even if he remains at St. James Park beyond the September 1st transfer deadline. With less than 3 weeks remaining in the window, matters are in danger of becoming even more messy with Isak having made clear his intention to leave with Liverpool his preferred destination. While there have been differing claims on when Isak told Newcastle of his desire to seek a fresh challenge after 3 years on Tyneside, the latest suggests Eddie Howe was informed by the player several weeks before the end of last season. Such detail is largely irrelevant. The crux is just how vehement Isak has become in his willingness to leave, and that Howe is acutely aware of this and is keeping his best player far away from his squad. Nobody could dispute the optics aren't great for Isak. There's never an ideal manner to leave a club regardless of how well the player believes it has been controlled. Just ask Trent Alexander-Arnold. But some ways are better than others. Isak isn't being advised particularly well. And just how much he wants to leave may ultimately be determined by whether he issues a formal written transfer request, usually the very last resort given the financial penalties it can often trigger. Is there any turning back for Isak at Newcastle? Right now, it appears unlikely, although it's not completely impossible. Rehabilitation would, however, be a very painful process for all parties. Of course, all of this is primarily Newcastle's concern. The Magpies also struggling to recruit new forwards given their lack of a sporting director and chief executive. Their pre-season is not going to plan. But it is obviously of interest to Liverpool and indirectly influences their strategy in the remaining weeks of the transfer window, with Arne Slot having heavily intimated another striker needs to be recruited in the wake of the Community Shield defeat to Crystal Palace on Sunday. There is a suggestion Liverpool are putting Isak into a difficult position with the claim they are allowing the situation to fester by thus far declining to table a second bid for the player having had an initial approach flatly rejected at the start of the month. However, the fact is the only other recognized striker in transfer history to have commanded a higher fee than Liverpool's £110 million offer for Isak is Kylian Mbappe, who cost £165 million when moving from Monaco to Paris Saint-Germain in 2018. Liverpool are willing to spend an enormous amount on Isak and have a valuation based on market trends. But it isn't as much as the £150 million Newcastle ideally want. The Reds' decision not to make a second bid was always caveated by the landscape at the time. That continues to dramatically change, and there's never been any indication of Liverpool ending their interest in Isak. But they won't need to be in any immediate rush. Regardless of where Isak plies his trade after the transfer window closes, the lack of a proper preseason means the striker won't be featuring for anyone until next month at the earliest. The pressure, then, continues to increase on Newcastle, an inevitable consequence of their steadfast refusal to sell. Although it says much, there are contrasting claims regards that stance. The Tyne waters are very muddy at present. It may well be that Newcastle, rather than digging in their heels, choose soon to once again open dialogue with Liverpool in the hope of thrashing out a British record deal for a player who evidently no longer wishes to play for them. The clock is ticking ever louder. Alexander Isak to Liverpool transfer takes dramatic twist as Newcastle star moves out of house. Alexander Isak's house has reportedly returned to the rental market as the Newcastle United striker faces interest from Liverpool. The Reds are embroiled in a saga involving their Premier League rivals, in a deal that could exceed the current transfer record for a top-flight move. The reigning Premier League champions have already seen their £110 million bid rejected by the North East club, despite the Sweden international expressing his intention to leave St. James Park. According to the Times, the £6,590 a month home in the region returned to the rental market in the latest twist, involving a fractured relationship between Newcastle and their record signing. The 25-year-old's property reportedly hit the market when he flew to Spain for his own personal training rather than joining his teammates on their tour of the Far East. After a brief period off the market, the outlet has claimed the Pontillon property has returned and now seeking new tenants. Isak has been banished from the first team and has been training on his own at the Magpies, following his warm-weather camp at the Real Sociedad facilities. Liverpool are under no financial pressure to sign the forward, and the sale of Darwin Núñez has opened up another opportunity to test the resolve of Eddie Howe's side. However, Newcastle have been steadfast in their stance that he is not for sale, and the nature in which Liverpool's eye-watering bid was rejected. The Echo reported that, as it stands, they will not return to the negotiations table. But in a report from The Athletic which was published on Tuesday, Isak is reportedly adamant that he will not play for the Magpies again, nor will he reintegrate with the club. Attacking reinforcements have been the priority for the Magpies, but they have failed to sign Brian Bumo, Hugo Ekitike, and more recently, Benjamin Sesko, who snubbed a move in favor of a switch to Manchester United. Ekitike also turned down a move to Newcastle, but he joined Liverpool, where he made a goal-scoring impact on his competitive debut against Crystal Palace in the Community Shield. The 23-year-old had a positive performance on his first outing for the Reds, but he couldn't help Arne Slot's side to victory as they suffered defeat on penalties. Captain Virgil van Dijk was forced to admit in the mixed zone after the disappointment that there is always room for an attacking addition. "Well, we just lost Darwin, he went to Saudi, and we lost Lucho Luis Diaz. Obviously he went to Bayern Munich," he said. "I think there's always room for an attacker in order to strengthen us. So let's see what the window brings in terms of the balance of the team." Alexander Isak must put in transfer request to force Liverpool move. "I would sack agent on the spot." Don Hutchison has urged Alexander Isak to hand in a transfer request if he wants to leave Newcastle United, as he hit out at the one-away striker's agent. The Sweden international has made it clear that he wants to leave the Magpies this summer, with Liverpool his destination of choice. The Reds have already seen one bid worth £110 million rejected by Newcastle, while Isak has been made to train on his own as uncertainty around his future continues. He is not featured for the Magpies throughout pre-season as he holds out for an exit. Former Liverpool midfielder Hutchison has taken aim at Isak's agent as the messy transfer saga continues, admitting he would sack his representative if he were in the striker's shoes. "If I was Isak, I would sack my agent on the spot today," he wrote on X, formerly Twitter. "Footballers, even though sick, they have a say and an opinion. Generally take the advice from your agent. The agent has handled this saga incredibly bad. The agent is hanging his player out to dry for the money." In a follow-up tweet, Hutchison then urged Isak to hand in a transfer request if he really wants to leave Newcastle. "If it's not about the money," he wrote, "put in a written transfer request. Doing that means you give up all the money owed to move on. The reason why they haven't is they want the money from Newcastle and the move plus money from Liverpool." The Athletic reported on Tuesday that Isak considers his Newcastle career over and has no intention of playing for the club again, regardless of whether they continue to block his wishes to move on or not. Liverpool have not returned with an improved offer since the Magpies rejected their £110 million bid on August 1st, with it understood that club bosses considered it futile to return with an improved offer, given the swiftness and clarity of Newcastle's rejection. But with the Magpies still pursuing new attacking recruits of their own and Isak adamant he wants to move on, the Reds are continuing to monitor his situation and will be ready to react if Newcastle soften their stance. Another news is how Alisson and Mamardashvili can work as a team in Liverpool's pursuit of more success. Alisson Becker and Georgi Mamardashvili both have significant roles to play as Liverpool look to build on their title-winning success next season. Jerzy Dudek believes. Mamardashvili is now part of Arne Slot's squad after his transfer from Valencia was completed this summer, with the Georgia international part of a new-look goalkeeping department headed up by the returning Xavi Valero. The 24-year-old has replaced Kevin Kelleher in Slot's group, and the club's former number 1 Dudek feels the Premier League champions remain in an enviable position of strength when it comes to goalkeepers. "I think we have two really good goalkeepers. We also had two really good goalkeepers because Kelleher was absolutely amazing when he had the opportunity to play because Alisson couldn't, and this is what you need," the 2005 Champions League winner told LiverpoolFC.com. You know from the past that the competitions are long. There are many, many games to come. You never know what is going to happen, and you need two good goalkeepers. Alisson is, in my opinion, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and he is the number one, and then Marmadashvili, he can be a really good replacement. He has got all the capacities to be at the top of the game, which absolutely we need. For every position you need to have a good replacement, especially in goal. Dudek, who also won the FA Cup and League Cup during 186 appearances for the club between 2001 and 2007, remembers well the transition all goalkeepers who arrive in English football must process. Of course, Mamardashvili needs time to adapt because the Premier League is a little bit different. The ex-Poland international, who joined Liverpool from Feyenoord, said, "The game is quicker. There is much more pressure on the player, and he will probably find that out very soon. There is much more pressure on the goalkeeper, especially now when you are trying to build the play with your feet but also with crosses, and this is a huge difference between the Premier League and when you play in the Champions League, for example. It is a different style of refereeing, and everything that is a foul in Europe is play on in England. As a goalkeeper, you have to accept it and be strong in your mind that it doesn't matter what is going to happen, you need to deal with it. I found this out at the beginning when I joined Liverpool and realized I had to adapt. I didn't accept it at first, but you have to be really strong and you need to respect it because it is the same for everyone." Alisson has been firmly established as the Reds' first-choice stopper since he signed in 2018 and is heading into the 8th season of a trophy-laden, already legendary Liverpool career. Dudek has experience of being both a number one and number two, and detailed how the dynamics must work in order for the keepers in question to contribute to the success of their club. He explained, "I was really confident when I knew I was the number one. I was good when we had a good relationship but knew our roles as number one and number two. I had that when I came to Liverpool and also at Feyenoord, and then when I went to Real Madrid in 2007 they told me too, but that time they told me I would be the number two, so I knew my role was to prepare Iker Casillas and bring him in the best shape for the games. I accepted it and I did it. The best situation is when both goalkeepers grow upwards. So, if Alisson is on the highest level possible, it is important for Mamardashvili to go to that level, not bring Alisson down a level. As goalkeepers, you both need to work to go up because that is important for the team's success in the season, and if you win the league or the Champions League, the level of satisfaction for the goalkeepers will be the same. If you have confidence in your role, you perform much better. You want to have a nice time together, but if you are in Alisson's position, you know you need to focus. You need to prepare yourself as the number one. Mamardashvili, he knows for now that he is the number two, but if you get your chance, you have to take it. This relationship is down to the goalkeeper coach too, in terms of how he will protect the number one and improve the number two. But so far, from what I have seen, the relationship between the goalkeepers here is very good, and I hope it stays like that because there are so many competitions and everyone will get a chance. It's not like it used to be where one goalkeeper could play 300 games in a row. It is nothing like this anymore, so now you will get the chance to play. Thanks for watching. Like and comment and subscribe.